remember I was asking my journal all these questions. What is love? What is energy? What is, asking about the universe, all this stuff. And I'm receiving answers and I'm writing this stuff down. And then one day I just literally heard, okay, now it's time to publish your book.
I would like to welcome Victoria Wright. Thank you so much for coming on to Godcast podcast. We had to hurry up and hit the record button because so many good nuggets were coming out in our conversation quite naturally. So I'm really looking forward to this podcast. So thank you again. I don't know your work. This is really my friend Stephanie introduced us, and I like your vibe, and here we are. So I'm looking forward to getting to know you around the conversation of God, the word God, and our own spiritual and unique paths towards inner freedom, however that looks for each of us. So welcome.
Wonderful.
Mhm.
Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure and a wonderful surprise to be asked to join you today.
Oh, good. Good. So before we go into some of the questions, I just want a little bit of a background from you. What is it in a snapshot? What is the work that you do? You're an
Sure.
author, and yeah,
hmm
give us a
So
feeling.
I am an author. I am a recovering corporate executive.
Yes.
And so I left that world based upon guidance from my higher self to leave. It was time. And I kind of jumped and I didn't know where I was going to land. And I've been doing a few different things, voiceover work. And then I landed on writing. And so I'm an independent author. And I have written 4 books thus far. My fifth one will be launching at the end of February, and it's my debut young adult
Oh, good.
book
Yeah,
that is
good.
about bullying, which I'm really excited. I was always excited about all of them because I never
Yeah.
thought I'd be a writer. It was never a dream. But now this one really, oh, it feels this feels really, really good. But I'm an inspirational author that brings in spirituality and my Native American background. So they're all interwoven.
Oh my gosh, I'm trying not to cry right now because just you're tinging a lot of different things. Somehow or other, I've invited a lot of people who are advocates in the recovering bullying, realm.
Uh-huh.
So, and I feel like that to me is spirit giving me the people that I need to give me the information I need to have perspective on what it was like being brought up bullied.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
thank you for your work and on the Native American element too. I've in my observation and also in my own personal experience, I feel like there's a lot of people, a lot of white traditional Americans who've been disillusioned with the religion that they were brought up in or came from their families. And they're like going into yoga and doing all these different things to have a dogma free space to explore what is inner balance, what is inner peace, what is connection to spirit. And
Mhm.
a lot of the people that I am in community with are really respecting and going back to what is the indigenous wisdom. We've become so disconnected from Mother Gaia, from the planet, and from planting seed and eating food. And so a lot, I'll speak on behalf of dominantly white. I do have a little bit of Native American blood back there, a couple generations back, but um, we feel so yeah, disconnected and really seeking the wisdoms from the elders in indigenous communities. So I just wanted to let you know that is really
Mhm.
tinging a ting for me, and I think a lot of the people that I tend to attract as well. So
Good.
this is just making me even all the more excited to have you here. So thank you.
Wonderful.
So, what I like to explore a little bit, I want to learn about, how were you raised? What kind of a family environment were you in? What was the dominant religion, if there was one in your household, and what did that look like for you?
Sure. So, I was born in Jersey, but but I grew up on Martha's Vineyard. That's where my tribe is from. So I'm Wampanoag, Aquina Wampanoag. And growing up, it was a unique way of growing up, living on an island in and of itself. But um, we weren't overly, my mom and my dad were not religious. Um, I think they kind of went through the motions, did what, people did in those days, Um, but I was never baptized, we didn't do that often. And I think
Did
a
you
lot
guys
of it comes.
celebrate Christmas, that kind of stuff, like
Oh yeah, no, we would
American
celebrate the
stuff? Yeah.
holidays, but not in the religious sense
Yeah.
of those holidays. And I think some of it really comes from the fact that my native family, um, my great grandfather, you can see right there,
Oh, wow.
he was chief of our tribe
Wow.
for a number of years, and um, he found religion, or religion found him, and he became a Jehovah Witness. Yeah, and
Yeah.
so all of my great aunts, my grandmother, I believe some of my great uncles also became Jehovah Witnesses. And so that was prevalent in my upbringing.
Okay.
And my mom made it very clear to my grandmother that, that's your religion. That's not, what we believe in. Nor did my grandfather believe in it per se either. But
Okay.
my grandmother was the one who was and her
Holding, yeah.
very much into it. And so, but so I'm not only Native American, I'm African American. My father was Black and my grandfather was Filipino. So we have all these
I
different
thought I saw a Filipino. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
all this ethnicity coming
Beautiful. I
in
love
with
it.
different roles. But I was very much raised Native, and
Okay.
so religion at that point in time, it was, I would try to have conversations with my grandmother about it and say, but if I'm a good person, at that time believing, there is a external heaven, there's an external hell, if I'm a good person, why would I need to follow what you believe? Because she would always slip in
Oh, yes.
when the
Some,
pamphlets and stuff
oh,
like that. And
yes. I,
as I grew older, I would try to have intellectual,
hmm
debates with her
hmm
about it. And, she was always, because deep in her heart, she believed that she wanted to ensure that I went to the right place
Right. Yeah.
after
Yeah.
death.
Sure.
Um,
Out of fear. She
and
doesn't want you to burn in hell for all of eternity, right?
right,
What a trip.
exactly.
What a heavy trip.
But, but she was never fully able to clearly explain to me, why is it that I have to believe exactly this to be
Mhm.
able to go supposedly to
Right.
heaven?
Yeah.
And, I don't want to say I humored it. It was just something that we always believed. She never participated in Christmas. We never celebrated birthdays with her. We would try to slip little things in. She would, she'd push them away because that's not what her belief was. And it was just kind of how we lived life. Um, so and the people around her, the people in her church, I mean, they were all wonderful people. And as she grew older, they were always there to take care of her. And, my grandfather passed earlier, so it was just a normal thing. But it kind of put a, a block there for me because I couldn't understand, and either I couldn't understand or she wasn't necessarily able to explain it to me. But then as I got older and as I learned more about my Native history and all of the things, what really got to me was the fact that because my great grandfather left being chief of the tribe, left that life to become a Jehovah Witness, all of those traditions and the things that
Yeah.
naturally would have been passed
Yeah.
down to myself and to my brother were
We're
not.
suppressed. Ugh. So
Yeah, and
sorry.
so
Ugh.
I
Ugh.
as I got older and as, as I went to college and I met people from other tribes and how they'd go home for ceremonies and do different things, not to say that we don't have them and not to say that my mother didn't give me that, but you know, there was more that I felt I
Oh, sure.
should have been
Yeah.
given. And so I started to really, really resent it. Like
Mm.
I was really kind of pissed off that
Yeah.
you guys
Right.
come in here, you tell them that,
Right.
what they believe is not right, then you strip them of the culture and then,
Right.
so yeah, so
All in the name of control. You
yeah.
know. Yeah.
So it wasn't it wasn't something that I looked, fondly upon. But, if
Yeah.
someone, not that Jehovah Witnesses go door to door so much anymore, but, when they do, I'm always very friendly. And I always say,
Oh,
hey, my grandmother couldn't convert me, so you're
good
surely not
luck.
going to. And, but very nice to meet you.
I
And
at some point I made the decision when people try to talk me into their religion, I start selling mine. The conversation tends to end pretty soon.
yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I've come around from that. I mean, but I do still think there are some deep-seated,
Mm,
uh, you know, animosity that I do still carry, and I am, working on releasing that. But so you couple growing up in a family of Jehovah Witnesses, and then you add on to that just, identifying strongly with being Native, with my tribe, and then learning about, you know, how religion historically has come in to do huge atrocities against us.
mm,
Other ethnicities as well, but focusing on us,
yeah,
coming
it's
in
personal.
saying we're heathens, you have to have religion, you have to do all this stuff. And then boarding schools and cutting of hair and
Mm,
making people believe that their language and their cultures are bad. you
yeah.
know, you add all of that onto it. When I look at organized religion, it's hard for me to see it for its purity. Um, like my partner, he's Native as well. He's read the Bible and he looks at it as an intellectual document, and stuff like that. I haven't brought myself to read the Bible. Um, but it's this whole thing of, you know, how can something that in its purity is so beautiful be manipulated in such a way to be so in situations
Cruel.
so
Yeah.
horrific.
Yeah, and
Um,
horrific. Yeah.
yeah, so, and then, I have friends of all different faiths, and
Mm,
they were brought up, some brought up Catholic with nuns, with the rulers and all this stuff. And I'm like, holy
mm,
Toledo, seriously?
yeah.
So I'm just like, you know what? I'm just gonna shut this off. I'm just shutting it off.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd say I was a heathen. I've always believed that there's something much bigger than
Yeah.
all of us. I
Yeah.
just never. you know, wanted to or paid much attention to what it was, um, until I've obviously became much older. Um,
Well, tell me more about that. Like what happened for you because you carry a lot of light and you're doing light work, healing work in the world. So to me, all I smell is God in the air, whatever God is, or spirit, higher purpose, the great collective that we are and the truth of who we are as part of the mass spiritual awakening that's happening right now that I hear from a lot of different leaders from a lot of different spiritual paths, I would say all non-traditional
mhm.
spiritual paths. So tell me about what happened for you. You decide this is not for me, and
Right.
what happened
Yeah.
next, and who did you meet? What
So,
did you study? What did you do?
yeah, so crazy enough, when I was in college, my undergraduate, I did study world religion. So Buddhism and different, different religions. And I, I guess it was on a whim, like I said, I've always known that there was something bigger.
Mm,
And yes, for as much as I said that there was traditional wisdom that was not passed down by like my grandmother and my great aunts. Obviously, my mom, taught us things, and other elders in our tribe taught us things as well. And so, just the fact of paying attention to nature, that there are signs out there always, we're not just kind of plodding along, we are being guided, and, you may not recognize it per se. Um, but they're we're getting help. And I
yeah.
have always had an open mind. But really when spirituality uh came to me was um it was just prior to the pandemic. Well, a few years prior to the pandemic. I was in my early 50s, and so I was in corporate America, finance, and I was demoted from my position. And, I had a team, multi-million dollar budget, blah, 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 and I was demoted. And it wasn't, it wasn't right.
Yeah.
There was no reason. Well, there was a reason for the demotion. And in all honesty, my manager at the time who demoted me said, she was saving someone else's role. Okay, great for them. But, I was a manager as well, and there are other ways of doing that. So needless to say, I went to our human resources
Mm,
department. I said, it doesn't pass the sniff test. This is not right. Happy to get an attorney. I happen to be one, but I'll get an outside attorney, and so I like to say they put me on ice basically for 7 months, which meant that I got paid, but I wasn't working.
mhm,
And I was waiting for new opportunities to come about. So that actually took 7 months before I found a new position. But during that 7 month time, that's when I had my spiritual awakening.
mm,
It was one of, I would say, one of the hardest times in my entire life. Ego
yeah.
was just beaten about the head.
Mm,
I didn't know which end was up. I felt worthless. I completely associated with my job. If I don't have a job, who
yeah.
am I?
Right.
Will I,
Yeah.
the what a spiritual awakening is, you
Yeah.
go
Existential
dark and deep.
meltdown. Yes.
Yeah. And yeah, so I went through all of that, and that was a couple of years before pandemic. I found another role within the same company. I did that, and then right around pandemic time, I was guided and said, "You know what? This is not you. You need to leave. You need to leave this job." And I'm an A-type personality, I'm like, well, hey, you don't leave a job unless you have a job, all
Right.
of those belief systems were there. And finally, I had the courage to leap, and I took an early retirement, and I sat there and I remember I was sitting on the couch. Pandemic was really just warm, heating up. And I turned to my partner. I said, "Uh, do you know anything about voiceover work?" And he looked at me
That's random.
very, because I had seen a post from a person that I knew who set up his home studio because he did a
Mm,
lot of traveling for work.
mm.
And pandemic didn't allow him to travel anymore. So he's hustling, like, I need to make money. And the microphone just, it was almost like the microphone was glowing.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, I have no idea. And I just had to figure out voiceover. I had to. And I did. And I got trained and I did this, and I ended up becoming a voiceover artist, and I narrated books on Audible and on all this stuff. And so I tell you this story to say that I am, unbeknownst to me, learning that I am being guided here.
Yeah.
And slowly, through some guidance from others and me journaling, this my higher self, source, spirit, whatever you want to call it, my soul, I am hearing, literally hearing, what I need to be doing in my life. And as I was being guided and hearing this, I was guided to take more leaps of faith and do all these stuff, which led me to becoming an author. But well, it still is. It's a crazy, crazy, crazy ride that I'm
Yeah.
on.
Do
Um,
people have you found that there's people in your life that question the decisions that you're making kind of thing at all?
yes.
Oh,
Yes. Well,
yeah.
in the very beginning, yeah. I mean, so my mom, she's 80 now. So when this was all starting and I wrote my very first book, it wasn't, it was a tiny book. It was a little book, but it was a result of my journaling. I rely heavily on my journal, and I remember I was asking my journal all these questions. What is love? What is energy? What is, asking about the universe, all this stuff. And I'm receiving answers and I'm writing this stuff down. And then one day I just literally heard, okay, now it's time to publish your book. I'm like, okay, you just told me to be a voiceover artist. I'm doing that. Why am I publishing a book? And so, I did. I published it. It's out there. I did it as an audiobook
What's
as
it
well,
called?
It's called Healing Words.
Okay,
And so to
cool.
inspire, remember, and know.
Okay.
And so I did that. But when am now able to look back on it, it was like my coming out party
Yeah.
because I had to now own it.
Mm.
It's like just because you build it doesn't mean that they're going to come. I had to now tell
Yeah.
people
Yeah. Right.
I left a very good, well-paying job
Yeah.
to do what? And now
Right.
I'm saying what? And I'm hearing what? You went to school for business. You went to school for law. What are
Yeah.
you,
What are you
what?
doing?
What
Yeah.
are you doing?
Yeah.
And to talk to strangers was fine. I could talk up a storm about all of this. It was talking to the people that knew me,
Mm.
my mom in particular, friends and past colleagues and stuff like that. And I remember telling my mom, and she was just like, okay, okay, wait a minute. This is getting a little woo-woo for me. I don't know what to do with this. And I likened it to, I said, you ever see that show, The Long Island Medium?
Oh, Yeah. Oh,
And she's,
I'm a huge fan.
oh, I have too. I have too.
My man partner actually took me to see her in person, and a very close friend of mine, one of my best friends, was passed over while I was there, and she
Oh,
said the word butterflies, which was this whole thing we set up. Anyway, it was so yes, I'm a huge fan
yes.
of Long Island Medium. So now, had your
My
mom
mom watches
seen?
her as
Oh, she
well.
does. Okay.
Yeah, and I said, you see what she does? And she's like, yeah, well, she talks to, dead people and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, if I allow myself, that's a gift that I've been given as well. But I was like, well, if she can do it,
Why
why
can't I?
can't I? And
Yeah.
she had to stop for a second and think about it. And I said, and if I can do it, why can't you? And I said, do you ever have dreams um, about grandma? And we called my grandfather Pupper. I said, do you ever have dreams about grandma and Pupper? And she's just like, yeah. And I said, like, they were so real that you woke up thinking that you were talking to them. And she's like, yeah. I said, you are. And then she was like, okay.
It's too much. This does not fit into my ideology. Yeah.
So she
Yeah.
shut down a bit on me, and as we do more and as I've written more books and as she's reading, and I've got a newsletter I put out, and of course she's a subscriber, and
Oh, good.
she always is like, where do you come up with this shit? And that's what she always says to me. And I just
That's
look at her
amazing.
and she's like, okay, it just comes to you. And I'm like, yes, it comes to me because
Wow.
I'm supposed to share it. And if it helps you, that's what I'm supposed to be doing.
Wow.
Um, yeah.
That's
So,
amazing. So I want to hear a bit about the upcoming book. Tell me, because I feel like
oh,
that's going to be a representative of where you're at on your spiritual journey, coming into and refining your gifts to the world, which basically, I don't know, from my perspective, we're just tools. The gift
yeah.
is there,
Hmm.
right? So our work of opening up and allowing to come through. So I want to hear about that.
Oh, sure. So, the book is entitled The Quiet Butterfly, and
Interesting butterfly, isn't
yes,
it?
yes, exactly,
Okay.
exactly. And so it came to me when I was started writing the okay, so let me step back for one quick second. I am not the type of person or the type of writer that you know pl- plots it all out, like the hero's journey and
Sure.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's not how I write. I was never trained to be a writer, never thought I could write. I was guided to sit in front of my laptop, put my fingers on the keys, and then something comes to me. And so, the beginning of this story came. And the impetus of it is because it's about bullying externally, people bullying the main character, bullying other people. But ultimately, in the end, it's about the bully that's inside. And as I've gone on this journey that I'm now on, I'm realizing, that continual loop in the back of your head, that negativity, that doubt, that fear, unworthiness, all of that, it had to come from somewhere because we're
Mm.
not born with it. So,
Hmm. Yeah.
it's the type of thing of like, was I bullied when I was younger? Yes, I've had instances of bullying. Was it horrendous? Not to compare to anybody, but no, but when you hear stories nowadays, there's some pretty horrible things that are going on. But yes, I had things that were not said that were not nice to me. I had people, try to have power over me. Um, and those planted little seeds. So either I release, well, I didn't release them because they planted seeds, but I thought that I got over it. and I grew up and I became educated and I have these degrees and I had these jobs and a family and all this stuff. And then now on this journey that I'm on, all of a sudden this stuff is coming back hard and fast.
Uh,
That doubt is coming back because I'm trying to take now leaps of faith that I've never done before.
right.
That I don't know what the blueprint is on this. I don't know how to do this.
Mm,
And that the faith and the trust that I have to have. And so ego comes in and start chirping around. And I'm just like, wow, I am 56 years old right now. And I'm sitting here and I'm trying to manage this bully inside of me. I am,
mm,
again, educated. I have life experience, all of these things.
right.
But it comes down
Yeah.
to going back to the child
Mm,
inside of you
mm,
to say, to show that you are safe,
yeah.
that those things that may have been said to you by even people that love you,
Right. Yeah.
may not be your truth. That might have been their truth or what they
Right.
thought was their truth. And so the seeds that are growing, these things that are coming out now, that you don't have to follow that. You don't have to believe it. Um, and my son has, had experienced some bullying. And, I'm sitting here going, oh my God, I'm writing this book and he's being bullied. And I just don't want him being 30, 50 years
Right.
old and having this come back on him.
Yeah.
I
Resurface.
can't
Yeah.
stop the bullying. It's there.
Right.
It's life.
Right.
But where I want to help is to remind people that they have control on what they believe.
Mm, yeah.
I had a science teacher. So I have dimples. And I said, why do I have this dimple on my face? And he didn't say this with malice, but I was really young when he said it to me. It's because your face is so fat, it has to buckle somewhere.
Oh my gosh. He probably thought he was just
So,
being funny.
yeah, that's what he thought he was.
Gosh.
So, my entire life, I believe I had a fat face,
Wow. Wow.
and
Yeah, that's how it happens.
it
Those
does. And so
things.
I was
Yeah.
like, young people are under so much diff I don't want to say much more stress, but different stresses.
Yeah.
They have things coming at them from so many different places. And if they're not careful, that stuff sinks in and those seeds get planted. And
Mm,
then as they grow up, they find themselves in a very, very limited life.
yeah.
And my hope was through the main character. Her name is Nipa Irving, so she's biracial. Um, she gets wisdom from her grandfather, traditional wisdoms of listening to nature, knowing that nature is there to help you and guide you, and
Mhm.
that, there are other energies out there as well that are there to guide you. To know that you have all the answers inside of you already, and
Mm,
that two, you have the strength to have your own belief system and create your own life. And like a butterfly, we all have that has many stages and not all of them are beautiful, but everyone can fly high. They just need to take that leap of faith.
mm,
And so my I trust that the messages, and I like to call them reminders, that I
mm.
have throughout the book will plant different seeds
Yes.
in the reader's head to remind them that really they are very powerful and they don't have to listen to anybody else but themselves.